I caught Carl cheating, so I set up a hidden camera to get proof. Really? Well, that's it, then. Time for the divorce. Hearing these incomprehensible statements, I just stared at the two of them, totally stunned. Too bad, Carl. Once I knew you were cheating, I set up surveillance cameras all over the house. This is the end for Dad, isn't it? Then, on the day, my wife Jackie and daughter Shannon called all the relatives, booked a venue, and invited a crowd. Please take a look at this, Shannon declared as she directed everyone's attention to the screen. They had set it up swiftly, ready to show the so-called evidence video. But in the next moment, everyone in the family went silent, their eyes frozen on Shannon. What? Oh, so that's what this was about. Watching the footage play, I finally understood the truth behind that video. My name is Carl. I'm 52, done with raising kids, but still very much in the workforce. In today's world, it's just not feasible to retire early. Every day, I head to the office as usual, looking forward to relaxing with a drink in the evening. The train ride to work gets harder every year. And then there are family issues on top of that. Yes, these days, my main concern is my relationship with Jackie and Shannon. About 8 years ago, when Shannon left for college, Jackie and I practically stopped talking. Sure, our conversations had already been on the decline, but we openly avoided each other around that time. Back then, I convinced myself it was inevitable. After nearly 20 years of marriage, our conversations had mostly centered around Shannon. Once she was out of the house, I figured our silence was natural. But Jackie's changes didn't stop there. As time went on, she started staying out, sometimes not coming home at all. Jackie, why didn't you come home last night? I was worried since I didn't hear anything from you. What's the big deal? I'm not a kid. I can do whatever I want, wherever I want. She had always been a housewife. In our early days, she welcomed me home with a warm meal and a smile. Not because I forced her, it was something she loved, and she took on the housework as her hobby. Even when our conversations dwindled, meals became takeout, and her smiles were replaced by written notes, I believed her feelings for me hadn't changed. So I was genuinely worried when I asked her. However, it seemed that somewhere along the way, her feelings had changed. That may be, but lately, this has been happening all the time. Besides, there's no sign of you eating at home. Where do you go all the time? Oh, do you want to keep tabs on me now? Just because I'm a housewife, you expect me to always be at home, greeting you with a hot meal. Or are you saying I shouldn't spend anything because it's your money? What era are you living in? She spat out these words with a look of cold disdain that made it clear she truly resented me. This wasn't the look of a wife who appreciated her husband's concern. Shocked, I tried to brush it off, telling myself she was just in a bad mood. I'm not saying that at all. It's just, disappearing without any contact worries me. You'd be wondering what was going on if I went away on a work trip without telling you, wouldn't you? I wouldn't care. Maybe I'd think you're cheating, but, honestly, I don't need to know. Anyway, I have plans today too. I won't be back tonight, so don't wait up. Hey, hold on a sec. Ignoring my words, she brushed past me and walked out the door. After that day, our conversations pretty much stopped. I'd always been the type to work long hours during the week and spend weekends catching up on rest. If Jackie was now consciously avoiding times when I was home, it was inevitable that we'd rarely see each other, even though we lived under the same roof. Before I knew it, we were practically living as strangers in the same house. And around that time, her spending skyrocketed. $1K this month, $2K last month. Isn't that a bit excessive? She had always managed our household finances. I received a monthly allowance and, if needed, asked for additional funds. This was common among the families around us, and I'd never questioned it. But on a whim, I decided to check our bank balance for the first time in a while, and I was stunned. The recent transactions were shocking, with money being withdrawn almost every week. Naturally, I confronted Jackie about it. "What's going on here? What are you spending the money on? $2K isn't a small expense." "Oh, you noticed. How annoying." "It's fine, whatever it is." "It's not fine. This is our family's money." Here we go again. "Because I'm a housewife, I don't get to spend freely. You're the one bringing in the money, so just keep funding it without complaints," she responded, barely masking her irritation. But I couldn't just let it go. For now, her spending hadn't exceeded my income. But if it continued like this, saving money would be impossible. Without savings, our future would be in jeopardy. Preparing for retirement, we needed to save every bit we could. "Don't just tell me to shut up. You think shouting will make me listen?" Really, what an old-fashioned approach. Relax. I'm saving on food and other living expenses. That's not the point. We're not done with this conversation. I have somewhere to be. Even a housewife needs to get out, or she'll go stir crazy. "See you." My desperate plea didn't even register with Jackie. Jackie kept dodging my questions like this, brushing me off every time she went out, claiming she had plans. More than once, I had to restrain myself from reaching out in frustration, but over 20 years of being together held me back. I tried a few times to suggest that we change how we managed our finances, but Jackie, intent on her financial freedom, always refused. Her face twisted in anger. "You're going to manage the money? Don't make me laugh. You're just trying to control me financially, aren't you?" "That's not it. Listen, please. Something's changed with you, Jackie. Maybe it's time to step back from the finances for a bit. You're trying to lock me up in this house, aren't you? I can't believe it, you're the worst." Whenever she lashed out at me like this, there was nothing I could do. To make matters worse, our daughter Shannon sided with Jackie. Ever since she'd left for college, Shannon had distanced herself, but I attributed it to her teenage independence. When Shannon would come back to the house now and then, her words cut sharply. "Hey, what are you doing here? What do you mean? I'm just relaxing in our living room. You're in the way." Shannon, who occasionally comes home, always spits such harsh words at me. The sharp, raised look in her eyes, just like Jackie's, truly shows they're mother and daughter. The contempt in her gaze is also the same. Holding back a sigh, I engage in conversation with Shannon. "Coming home to see my parents only to find you here just ruins any chance I have to relax. I get it, but I'm tired too. I work all day. Just stop talking. You stink of old man." And yet, despite her distaste, Shannon continued coming home, and the reason was clear. "Mom, can I have some money?" Again. "You really need to be saving better, you know." "Sorry, I just had a lot of trips this month." Shannon came back solely to ask Jackie for money, never even approaching me. On the worst days, she'd grab the cash without so much as a word to me. Jackie, always soft on Shannon, would hand over the funds from the household bank account without asking me. "Oh, he does make a decent salary, but we're hardly millionaires, so make him work harder. I know how it works. If he puts in tons of overtime, he'll earn more. Right? Just keep him locked up at the office. You know, that's not a bad idea. He's nothing but a nuisance when he's home anyway, so might as well have him working more." "Exactly. Then we get the house to ourselves." plus more money. Win-win. Every time I overheard conversations like this, I couldn't shake the unease that settled deep within me. Shannon is already 26 this year. A few years ago, she got married and started her own family. Last year, her daughter Jennifer was born, making me a full-fledged grandpa. Shannon's new home isn't too far from ours, so unfortunately, her habit of asking me for money hasn't stopped. In fact, it's only gotten worse. Hey, we're planning a family trip for the three of us. You're going to pay for it, right? A trip? Why don't you cover that yourselves? You're working, after all. Huh, what are you saying? You mean to tell me you won't pay so your precious granddaughter can go on a little trip? Shannon, unlike Jackie, has a full-time job. She's working in general office administration at a small company, not a flashy position, but a stable one with decent income potential. Yet, she continued to come to me for money. That's not what I meant. Carl, sorry for troubling you, Greg chimed in. Oh, don't worry, Greg. After all, that's all he's good for, handing out money. Shannon's husband, Greg, always met my gaze with a smile, never stepping in to curb her demands. Apparently, he worked as a contract employee, moving between various companies and struggling with an unstable income. That was one reason Shannon came to me for money, but the issue was her use of it. If she were in desperate need for essentials, I would happily support her. Anyway, just give us the money already. Sigh. I was painfully aware of my failures as a parent. How did it come to this? Maybe if I'd been stricter with her during college, things might have turned out differently. But given how things were, I wonder if even that would have helped. Between Jackie freely using my money in our virtually separated household and Shannon coming to me like a debt collector, I found it painful to stay in this family. I felt my sense of self-worth slipping away. Ironically, I ended up working more overtime, just as Shannon once suggested, because I didn't want to be at home. One evening, as usual, I stayed late at the office to avoid going back, knowing that Shannon and Greg were visiting. Every step toward the house felt heavier than the last. When I finally reached the door, the first thing I heard was Jackie's piercing voice, loud enough to make me cringe. What were you doing out this late? Cheating on me. Unbelievable. I want a divorce. What? Where did this come from? I was just working overtime, obviously. No, you're lying. If you're out this late, you must be cheating. Just wait. I'm going to get proof, right? Sure. Standing at the entrance, she greeted me with intense anger, somehow having convinced herself that I was cheating. I was too exhausted to argue, and simply gave up on trying to explain myself. After all, I wasn't cheating, so there would be no proof even if she investigated. If that investigation could satisfy her, then so be it. At least it would put her suspicions to rest. Besides, I figured any expenses from this so-called investigation would come out of my paycheck anyway. So now you're cheating too. You're the worst. I'm not. Sure, anyone can say that. You should just admit it and pay Mom a good settlement to get this over with. When I walked into the living room, Shannon greeted me with a look of complete disdain. Clearly, Jackie had already spoken to her. I was filled with irritation, but after all the overtime, I had no energy left. Trying to escape, I went straight to the shower and then to my room. Truly, this home was unbearable. Carl's been cheating, so I've captured proof on a hidden camera. Really? So it's divorce time, then? What? It was a few days later that Jackie and Shannon stood before me, holding a camera with smug expressions as they declared this. I stared at them in shock, unable to make sense of their words. Didn't notice, did you? It's too bad for you. After I learned about your affair, I set up surveillance cameras around the house. And guess what? They caught everything. You'd better be ready. Now you're finished. Mom, why don't we invite the whole family over and publicly humiliate him? Sounds perfect. Let's invite Greg too, he's part of the family, unlike this man. Right. Ignoring me entirely, the two of them cheerfully planned the details. I knew I hadn't done anything wrong, but I was still curious about this so-called evidence Jackie had. What exactly did you capture in that footage? Oh, so now you're curious? Too bad. I'm not showing you. It would be just like you to tamper with it if I did. I doubt you're capable of anything elaborate, but better safe than sorry. In the end, I wasn't allowed to see the footage until the event. Jackie and Shannon invited the entire family, booked a venue, and called it a party to introduce Shannon's daughter Jennifer. Although Jennifer was already a year old, they hadn't formally introduced her to the family yet. Family members, especially the women, gathered around Jennifer, completely captivated. Everyone, I have something I'd like to show you. After the meal, and as the party began to wind down, Jackie raised her voice. She even used the microphone, positioned carefully at the front of the room. Please, look this way. As Shannon made her announcement, a large screen descended onto the stage at the venue. The lights dimmed, and the footage from the hidden camera started playing. The video showed a dimly lit room, and the relatives watched quietly, wondering what was about to unfold. The video is a bit dark, but this is proof of Carl's infidelity, Shannon said. Shockingly, this man brought another woman into his own home to cheat. This footage is evidence that Mom courageously gathered. I truly wanted to believe in Carl, Jackie added, pretending to cover her eyes in grief. But this is undeniable evidence, and I didn't have the courage to confront it alone. I wanted all of you here to witness it with me. The relatives looked at her with sympathy as she dabbed at her eyes, feigning tears. But then, everyone's expressions suddenly froze. The reason was clear, and after a moment's silence, every eye turned to Shannon. Oh, I see now, I murmured, realizing what this footage actually was. The beginning of the video was dark, with only faint movements in the shadows. Jackie had sped up the video, and the lack of sound made it look like an affair scene in progress. However, in one revealing moment, someone opened the curtains, letting light into the room, and the face of the alleged cheater became clear. It wasn't me, it was Greg. What is this? Greg, what's going on here? Shannon shrieked. Wait, wasn't this supposed to be Carl's affair footage? Jackie exclaimed. That's what I thought. This is our guest room. Why is Greg in here? Shannon, shocked by the unexpected turn, grabbed Greg, who was now scrambling to explain himself, while Jackie looked between them, utterly baffled. The guest room. You've got to be kidding. Greg's face went pale. Barely managing to suppress my laughter, I muttered, looks like Greg has something to confess. Oh, so you knew, huh? Were you setting us up from the start? Shannon, catching my remark, quickly redirected her fury from Greg back toward me. It was clear she wanted to pin this all on me. No matter what. Not at all. This is the footage you collected, remember? I just knew I wasn't cheating, so I was curious to see what the video actually showed. You think you can get away with this with some flimsy excuse? Your plans are laughable. Well, that's not my intent. Though I had a hunch about Greg's cheating, if I'm honest. What? Shannon froze at my words, glaring at me as if to say, how do you know? Why didn't you say anything? It's my business what I do with what I know, I replied. Besides, I didn't have proof, just a suspicion. Maybe you noticed something yourself. That's You've got to be kidding, Greg exclaimed, now starting to panic. Shannon, meanwhile, seemed to recover, raising her voice defensively. Fine, yes, you caught me, but if you're going to cheat, at least be discreet about it. Ignoring things once you notice them isn't as easy as pretending not to see it. What? Greg looked dumbfounded. Well, now that it's out, there's no helping it. Greg, this is it. You're paying a full compensation and child support through the divorce. Shannon snapped, quickly turning her wrath toward him when she realized she wouldn't be getting a reaction from me. But Greg, usually so gentle, immediately raised his eyebrows in anger. Don't mess with me. What did you say? With a furious glare, he began rummaging through his bag. I know you've been cheating on me, too. What? Look at this. Greg pulled out 2 envelopes, one from a detective agency, and another containing DNA test results. Worried someone at home might find them, he apparently carried the envelopes with him wherever he went. Slightly rough, as he emptied their contents onto the table, Greg continued, visibly agitated. Here. This is evidence I've been gathering for nearly a year, along with a DNA test I did with Jennifer. By the way, the results confirm she isn't even my kid. What? When did you? How long have you suspected? From the start. I ignored it as long as you kept Carl and Jackie wrapped around your finger, supplying me with money. But if you want to play dirty, I can fight back just as hard. The two of them had completely forgotten the crowd of relatives around them as they hurled accusations about their infidelities. Their behavior was beyond ugly, and I could barely stand to watch. Worse, there were young kids here. I decided to start quietly guiding the youngest family members and women out of the room, knowing they didn't need to witness this scene. Those who stayed, relatives close in age, watched with expressions of disgust as Shannon and Greg's argument only escalated. Providing money. Is that what you think I am? I'm a beautiful wife, and you're lucky to have me. Shannon spat, her voice laced with bitterness. You're just a face with a horrible personality. Greg shot back. Oh, excuse me. Look who's talking. You wouldn't even make the cut on looks alone. Meanwhile, little Jennifer was in Shannon's arms, her face twisted with distress, clearly upset by the shouting. Watching her, I wondered how I could get her out of this. Her parents were so wrapped up in their own drama they couldn't even take care of their daughter. They didn't deserve her. And for someone who's failing in looks, you certainly didn't want let me go. Greg scoffed. What's that supposed to mean? You can't even make a decent living earning way less than me. Useless man. Oh, you infuriating woman. Fine, I'll leave, but don't expect a penny more than what the court requires. He barked, looking ready to physically fight. The sight made Jennifer's face contort even more as she watched her parents' angry exchange. Realizing Jennifer had reached her limit, I stepped between Shannon and Greg. Enough. How long are you planning to throw this disgraceful display in front of family? Have some shame. This is all your fault. Shannon snapped back. Oh, my fault, I said, meeting her glare firmly. For a moment, she hesitated. I'd never been one to raise my voice, and this was the first time I'd confronted her so directly. Still, I was Jennifer's dad. I could at least step up here. Turning my attention to Jennifer, I knelt in front of her, softening my expression. Are you okay, Jennifer? Good, you're being so brave. Could you wait in the other room with Bonnie? Mom and Dad need to talk this out. Though Shannon flinched momentarily, her eyes narrowed again right after, full of defiance. I had no idea how quickly things might escalate into round 2, and it was far too cruel to keep Jennifer in such a tense environment. While Shannon's attention was focused on me, I seized the chance to get Jennifer out of the room. Bonnie, my niece who sometimes looked after Jennifer, was in the next room. Jennifer, though clearly scared, nodded firmly as I escorted her over there. After making sure she was safely away, I turned back to face Shannon, who was still raring to tear into me. I stayed in this family, even as just the one providing the money, I told her, keeping my tone steady. You think there's a problem with that? Don't act so high and mighty. This all started because you were sneaking around and worrying Mom. You mean Jackie, I corrected, glancing toward her. Jackie's shoulders were trembling, and I let out a sigh. What is it? She said, defiant but visibly tense. Those who cheat tend to be the quickest to suspect their spouse of doing the same, like Shannon and Greg. Jackie stared at me, a flicker of fear in her eyes, as if guessing what I was about to reveal. It seems you've been following the same pattern, I added, letting her know that I was fully aware of her infidelity too. I spread out the evidence I'd prepared, laying it on the table. Jackie's face paled as she looked over the photos and documents nearly identical to those Greg had just presented, including receipts and a range of photographs. Only, these weren't of Shannon. Mom, is this? Jennifer had left a room, but Jackie looked horrified. Where did you get this? She demanded. I hired professionals. Your behavior's been suspicious for a while. All the evidence pointed to Jackie, proof of her interactions with strange men. Looking far too friendly, I stared at her with as cold a look as I could muster. Strictly speaking, it wasn't exactly infidelity. Her connections with these men seemed to be based on money alone, but that didn't matter to me in the least. This isn't what you think. I was just out having dinner with friends. It's way too controlling to suspect infidelity over everything. Friends, with young men who look like they're over a decade younger than you. I overheard some of your conversations, and they didn't seem very friendly to me. Everyone has their own way of defining friendships. Plus, age doesn't matter in friendship. Confronted with the evidence, Jackie started making desperate excuses. If she'd confessed now, I might have considered cutting her some slack. But it was too late for that. I pulled out a more damning photo. Maybe, but do friends go to hotels alone together? Cuddling like this. I was feeling unwell, and there just happened to be a hotel nearby. That's a convenient excuse. And just so you know, it's not just this guy. I've confirmed multiple relationships with others. I thought about letting Jackie save some face in front of Shannon, but if she was going to deny everything so stubbornly, I had no choice. I spread all the evidence I had left on the table. It included photos of Jackie entering and exiting hotels with different men over several days, along with documents detailing her affairs. Each person listed had been involved with Jackie at least once. The sheer number of them had left me dizzy when I first saw it. Here's a 25-year-old, there's a 27-year-old, and this one, she looks like she's just 20. Do you even know your own age? That's none of your business. How could you drag these unrelated people into this? It's just awful. They're not unrelated. By the way, I'll be suing all of your partners for compensation. You can't do that. If you do, they'll. The moment I mentioned compensation, Jackie screamed, but it didn't strike a chord with me. It was just empty noise. I sighed and confronted her with reality. I was offering to divide the claims among several people rather than just targeting one, so I felt I was being reasonable. They're the ones committing acts close to criminality. They've got to be prepared for the consequences. The worst that could happen is that your relationship with them ends. I can't let that happen. I'm divorcing you. Don't think you can live like before, spending my money without working. That's impossible. Her reaction surprised me a little. Could it be that after everything, she had no intention of divorcing me? She had tried to expose my infidelity all this time. Was her plan really to keep me under guilt, to continue using me financially? The more I thought about it, the more her logic eluded me, giving me a headache. This isn't a joke or a lie. It's the natural consequence of your actions. You need to take responsibility for what you've done. Wait, this was just a moment of weakness. You were so busy with work that I felt lonely and sought comfort. So you want me to forgive you? That's a bit convenient, don't you think? Our relationship has been broken for a long time. Stop clinging to me. For years, ever since Shannon went to college, I had endured the emotional abuse from both Jackie and Shannon, being belittled, having my money drained. It was time for me to be free. I will never forgive you. So whatever you say now is pointless. Just remember what you've done and live with your misery. Why? You love me, right? So this has to be a joke. This is no joke. My feelings for you ran out a long time ago. I stayed with you out of a sense of obligation built over the years. But that's over now. Never show your face to me again. If I had known things would escalate this way, I should have prepared a divorce application in advance. It was a hindsight thought, but it crossed my mind as I looked at the stunned faces of Jackie and Shannon. With Greg still hurling insults at Shannon in the background, I decided it was time to wrap up this gathering. I was now reluctantly involved in this mess. I sincerely apologize for the turmoil caused by my family's issues. I will issue a formal apology later. I will take care of all the aftermath, so please forgive us for today. Later, I presented Jackie with the divorce application and demanded compensation in court. Jackie resisted a lot, but all her objections were just lame excuses. With the help of a lawyer experienced in divorce issues, I secured a settlement that was heavily in my favor. As for the division of assets, I ended up receiving almost all of it. This was because Jackie had secretly used the shared savings account without my knowledge. Jackie resisted fiercely on this matter too, but my lawyer thoroughly explained the situation, and in the end, she reluctantly agreed. On the other hand, it seems that Shannon and Greg are having a difficult time with their discussions. They are currently embroiled in a divorce battle in court. There are numerous issues to address, such as compensation and child support, and it's said that both sides are hurling insults at each other without budging an inch, making things very challenging for the lawyers involved. Additionally, court proceedings can be quite expensive. I've heard that Shannon and Jackie are now living together, gradually paying off their debts to each other. As for Jennifer, she is currently with them, but it can't be said that her environment is ideal. I sincerely hope they resolve their issues on their own, but if Jennifer's safety is ever at risk, I'm prepared to consider taking her in. At this point, I still don't know how things will unfold, but for now I am thoroughly enjoying my newfound freedom. The fact that there are no lights on when I return home is the same as it was before the divorce. Meals are still something I eat alone, just like before. The only difference is that there's no one using my money without permission, and I no longer have to endure complaints while I relax at home on weekends. Everything has changed for the better, and I am satisfied. Moreover, at work, I've been asked if I would consider transferring to a different location. Until now, I had declined due to having a home, but it might be a good opportunity to try something new. Living in a new place, completely free from past entanglements, is incredibly appealing to me. At 52, I still have plenty of time ahead of me, and I'm ready to embark on a new chapter of my life.
He doesn't look anything like me. Must be a mistake somewhere. Maybe he's not even my son. Andy said that. while openly favoring his good-looking and intelligent son over his daughter, Crystal Jacqueline. He told me our daughter should get a job as soon as she finishes middle school, and destroyed the stuff we bought for her high school entrance. I couldn't take it anymore. I packed up and left, taking both kids with me. My name is Misty. I'm your average 35-year-old stay-at-home mom, living with my husband, son, and daughter. My son, William, has always been handsome since he was a kid, so much so that people often mistook him for a girl. My friends would even say, "You should get William into acting or modeling." He's also incredibly smart, gentle, and mature. By the time he was 3, he was already conversing like an adult. On the other hand, my younger daughter Crystal is definitely the cutest girl in the world from my point of view as a parent. However, her appearance was far from what is commonly known as a pretty girl. She's a bit on the plump side, with curly hair and a round face. She's not athletic and she's slow to speak. But to me, she's the most adorable girl in the world. However, there is someone who doesn't think well of such a girl. Andy, however, clearly favors William. When he gets home from work, he only pays attention to William. If Crystal tries to join in, Andy tells her she's creepy and trying too hard and trying too hard. Whenever this happens, William suggests, "Let's all play together." But Andy dismisses him, saying, "Don't play with Crystal, you'll catch her stupidity." William sits uncomfortably on his father's lap. He's smart. He understands what's happening. Even my mother-in-law, Jacqueline, dotes on William and mistreats Crystal. Andy's family owns a store. His dad has passed away, so Andy is expected to take over the business. That's why we go to my in-laws once a week. Every time we visit, Jacqueline, Andy's mom, grimaces and says, "Oh, you brought Misty and Crystal again? You could have just brought Andy and William." She says we don't have to come, but if we don't, she makes snide comments over the phone, treating me like a maid. I don't want to go to my in-laws, but Andy drags me along to help with chores, so I have no choice. On this particular day, Jacqueline decides to take William and Crystal to a large local park. While Crystal is thrilled to spend time with her grandma, I have an uneasy feeling. But, tied up with chores as usual, I reluctantly wave them off. By evening, Jacqueline returns home, carrying a tired William on her back. "Oh, he's getting heavy. William's growing up," she cheerfully comments. But there's no sign of Crystal. "Jacqueline, where's Crystal?" With no hint of guilt, she replies, "I don't know. Both were looking tired, but I can't carry both. So, I told Crystal to walk back on her own." I couldn't believe what I just heard. A chill ran down my spine. I bolted out of the front door and sprinted towards the park, rolling over myself in a panic. Who would leave such a small child alone? I prayed she was all right as I burst into the park. "Mom." The moment I heard that cry, Crystal leapt into my arms. I felt the tension drain out of me. A police officer was standing nearby. "You're her mom, right? The park staff found her crying alone and called us. You shouldn't leave a small child unattended." The officer admonished me, but then patted Crystal on the head, saying, "It's good your mom came for you." I bowed my head to the officer several times and tightly held Crystal's hand as we headed home. On the way, Crystal spoke up in her innocent words. "Crystal was sleepy. Grandma said I could nap, so I slept on a park bench. When I woke up, no one was there, and I cried. Are you mad?" "I'm not mad. I'm sorry I scared you." I couldn't help but hug Crystal, who was carefully reading my expression. When we got back to my in-laws' place, Both Jacqueline and Andy sighed at the sight of Crystal. "So she's found, huh?" Frustrated, I yelled at Andy. "Do you even care what happens to your own child?" Andy wasn't ashamed. He fired back with something shocking. "I don't care what happens to her. She's ugly and not smart. She doesn't look like me at all. You probably had her with another man and are making me raise her, but that's not gonna happen." Upon hearing this, Jacqueline also chimed in. "Would have been fine if she hadn't been found. Who knows where she came from? I've never cheated. Crystal is absolutely your child. Do you have any evidence of me cheating?" I protested, but all they did was mock me. From that point on, my daughter and I never went back to my in-laws' house. No matter how much Andy scolded us, no matter how many sarcastic comments Jacqueline made over the phone, I endured it all to protect Crystal. William had noticed how poorly Andy and Jacqueline were treating us. "Grandma would get mad if I also stayed home. I'm okay going alone. You and Crystal don't have to worry." That's what William said as he gently stroked Crystal's head. Although I felt guilty toward William, we stayed home. William is truly a kind-hearted child. Dealing with Jacqueline's mood swings must have been tough, but William managed it with his inherent brightness and charm. I've thought about divorcing many times, but without any qualifications and being just a housewife, I couldn't fathom supporting William and Crystal by myself. So, I had no choice but to endure. A decade had passed since Crystal and I effectively cut ties with my in-laws. William had become a working adult, and Crystal was about to start high school. With a new backpack and textbooks for high school, Crystal was looking forward to this new chapter in her life. Andy still treated Crystal poorly, but we had both decided to ignore him. As long as William and Mom are on my side, that's all that matters, Crystal would say, which always made my heart ache. Still, seeing Crystal excited about her new life made me happy, too. But then, disaster struck. Andy saw Crystal's new school supplies and went ballistic. "What is this? You're planning on going to high school? We've raised you this far, and you're not even our real child. Quit school and start working. Pay us back for all we've spent. Throw all of this stuff away, now." Ripping up her textbooks and tearing her bag apart, Andy hurled them into the muddy yard soaked from days of rain. "I'll make sure your mom hears about this." Andy said that and called his in-laws. Jacqueline came over almost immediately, as if she had been waiting for this moment. "Who do you think you are, planning to go to high school on our dime? You should be thankful you even got to go to middle school. Get a job as soon as you graduate and give us all your earnings. Misty, you should be grateful we even took care of your affair child," she said, clearly enjoying herself. "You two are nothing but a bad influence on William, our heir. You're both worthless. Get out." So there we were, Crystal and I, picking up her thrown school supplies, listening to Andy and Jacqueline's harsh words. Both of us were drenched in the rain. Rain soaked our hair, and droplets streamed down our faces to the ground. I couldn't tell if they were tears or rain anymore. With William already having moved out, there was no one left to stand up to these two. Crystal and I looked at each other, and we both knew. There was no reason left to stay in this house. After that, Crystal and I packed a few essentials and left. Andy and Jacqueline agreed to the divorce without a fuss. With nowhere else to go, we turned to William for help. William was shocked to see us covered in mud and rain, but quickly understood the situation and welcomed us into his home. William offered me a warm shower, a change of clothes, and a soothing drink. Feeling a bit more settled, we sat down to talk about what's next. "Got a call from Dad earlier. He said he's divorcing Mom and we should never let them in the house again. He told me to quit my job and take over the family store. But I don't want any part of it. I can't stand him or Grandma. Hearing this made my heart ache for William. I've always wondered how hard it's been for him, stuck between our family and his in-laws since childhood. I was putting up with it as long as Dad and Mom were married, and while Crystal was in that house. But that's not the case anymore, is it? William grins mischievously. How about changing schools, Crystal? I'm being transferred to another state. We can all move there. And let's keep it a secret from Dad and Grandma. I hope their store goes under. Upon hearing William's enthusiastic proposal, Crystal exclaims, I'm definitely in. I've always relied on William, so it made me feel guilty. But I decided to go along with it because it seemed like the best course of action. Everything fell into place smoothly after that. A few weeks later, we were settling into our new lives in a new place. What Andy and Jacqueline don't know is that Crystal is actually brilliant. She's always been good at tests, she just developed a little slower than others. She even aced the entrance exam to a top high school at our new location. Crystal and I both got new phone numbers, cutting off all contact with Andy and Jacqueline. William kept his line open just to keep tabs on them. He thought it'd be best to have a minimal line of communication to avoid being desperately searched for. 10 years have passed since then. Crystal is an adult now, William has a decent job, and we're all living separately. Today is a rare occasion where we've all gathered for a family meal. I decided to dress up a bit as I waited for the two of them. Suddenly, I hear, Is that you, Misty? Yes, it's Misty. It was Andy, now balding and bloated. And Jacqueline, her hair completely white. And hunched over like a witch from a storybook. Where have you been for 10 years, Misty? We've been worried. Are you still mad about us claiming Crystal is the child of an affair? Come back. We haven't seen Crystal and William for years. Where are my kids? Andy was ranting, saliva flying from his mouth. Yes, come back. We're in terrible shape now. Jacqueline shrieked in her hoarse voice. Despite the dramatic reunion, I felt nothing. I observed them, oddly detached. Mom! Mom, what's going on? I looked back towards the voice. I turned to see a sharply dressed young man and a lovely young woman in a cute dress. Pointing at them, Andy and Jacqueline were speechless. Is that William and Crystal? Yes, but what are Dad and Grandma doing here? William gives a terse response. Wow, you both look incredible. Crystal, you've turned into such a beauty, I hardly recognized you. I never imagined that little Crystal would grow up to be this stunning. I wish I'd been there to see it. Ignoring William's question, both Andy and Jacqueline share their thoughts. You see, after Crystal moved away from Andy and Jacqueline, her life improved significantly. Whether it was the lack of stress or her active involvement in high school activities, she transformed. Her face slimmed down, and her eyes, once lost in baby fat, became more pronounced. Her hair, which was once unmanageably frizzy, gained a beautiful wave. Now, Crystal is so adorable that she could stand next to a celebrity and not be overshadowed. Well, since her older brother William is handsome, Crystal must have had the potential to be beautiful as well. Both William and Crystal are successful and employed by big corporations. They are the pride and joy of me, their mother, Misty. So, the family is back together after 10 years. Let's go out for dinner. I don't have money on me, but you both can pay, right? After all, I've raised you. Andy places his hand on Crystal's shoulder. She promptly slaps it away. Don't touch me, it's creepy. I've always been told I was the result of my mother's affair. I have no father, and you didn't raise me. Who are you? Crystal, now wearing heels, towers over Andy. Enough is enough, William states calmly. I won't forget what you did to Mom and Crystal. Today is the last day we're in contact. Don't bother calling again. Andy explodes with anger. How dare you speak to your parents like that? Crystal, come home and marry a local businessman's son. William, come back and save the family business. Misty, apologize and serve us for the rest of your life. Andy's temper flares like wildfire. We exchange glances and burst into laughter. Why would we want your forgiveness? What made you think that? I'm actually getting married soon, so that businessman's son is out of the question. I'm starting my own business, so there's no way I can take over the family shop. What a shame it'll go under. Both of them laugh, shaking their shoulders. Andy looks desperate. Misty, you'll come back, won't you? His needy gaze is repulsive. Why would I return to that house? Who wants to be a housemaid there? Plus, I've remarried. So, no, I can't go back. I flash the shining ring on my left hand. What? You remarried? Without telling me? I won't accept this. Andy tries to snatch the ring off my finger. But before William can step in, another man comes between us. Do you have business with my wife? No rough handling, please. Andy felt cornered by the imposing man. What's your deal? Andy retorted, trying to puff up his chest. I'm Misty's husband. As far as I know, you and Misty divorced a decade ago. I was the lawyer who facilitated the process. A lawyer? Andy seemed visibly shaken by the man, who suddenly revealed he was a lawyer. That's right, I fell for Owen, the lawyer who helped me during my divorce 10 years ago, and we started dating. A few years later, we got married. Andy's face turned even redder. A lawyer, huh? Think you're something special because you make some money? Everyone, listen to me. Misty's my wife, and William and Crystal are my kids. You're in the way. With that, Andy charged at Owen like a raging bull. But Owen dodged smoothly. What? Unable to stop himself, Andy stumbled and rolled away, letting out a pathetic cry. Oh no! Andy! Jacqueline screamed in dismay. We all watched, holding our breath, wondering if Andy was all right. Lying on his back, Andy yelled, I'll forgive you all if you listen to me now. Good, he didn't seem to be badly hurt. But the fall did appear to shake him up quite a bit. What should we do now? I thought, and Owen reassured me. I've called an ambulance. It'll be all right. Let's leave the rest to them. Crystal was fuming. You're too kind. You should have just left him. Even her angry face was adorable. Hey, our dinner reservation is soon. Let's get going or we'll be late. William reminded us. Ah, yes. Today was a special family dinner day. With a reassuring embrace from Owen, we left. We could hear Andy and Jacqueline's verbal abuse behind us, but nothing scared us now. Months later, we heard that Andy's struggling business finally went under. Owen had gotten the news from a real estate contact. For 10 years after we left, Andy had kept things afloat, surprisingly. Now Andy was blaming a fall for not being able to work, leaving Jacqueline to handle both house and work, struggling to pay off debts. Hearing this, I couldn't help but marvel at how karma works. What goes around comes around. On a sunny Sunday afternoon, I was trying on a dress for Crystal's wedding. That looks great on you. I wonder which one I should wear. To think I'd see the day I'd attend as Crystal's father, it feels like a dream. I turned around, and there was Owen, holding 2 tuxedos in his hands, smiling shyly.